our second episode. I've got my husband here today joining me. Yeah, to talk a little bit more about what happened and why we're in the beginning. Where to start? So, I was born in 1990. My mum was a single parent with me. I've got 3 older siblings, but they had all moved out. So, at this point, it was my mum bringing me up single-handedly. My dad didn't want to know, so yeah, he was out of the picture. So it was just me and my mum for 30 years. Even when I got married to you and had children, she was still a big, huge part of our lives, wasn't she? She was like the 6th member of our family. So close to her, and she was my absolute world, my best friend. And yeah, I'm glad that I got quite of the important milestones with her, with having children. She was there for all 3 children, apart from the last one, obviously that was through COVID, but she was still there. She walked me down the aisle, she saw me get married. So yeah, I'm quite lucky that I got a lot of those milestones with her.
I would say, like, obviously meeting you, I would say your bond with your mum was probably closer than anyone I'd ever met before. In any aspects of life, friends, anywhere, I've never seen sort of 2 people so close. And it was easy for me to sort of integrate your mum into our family, and she was like the 6th member of our family. We used to have a joke where she'd sort of pass the buck to me. She'd had you for 30 years or 20 something years, and then passed it back to me, and I've had to have you for the rest of it. That was our little private joke, so she could have a little bit of peace. You were obviously really, really close. She'd come on holiday with us. She'd come to any meals we'd have. She'd be there, which made obviously what happened a lot worse than, I know it's bad for everybody that maybe have lost parents, and I wouldn't sort of play that down at all, but it just made it that extra bit worse than any normal situation. Maybe we'd just talk about the diagnosis, the first ever diagnosis, and maybe go from there.
So yeah, she first got diagnosed in 2006, breast cancer, lobular breast cancer, in her right breast, I believe. And I was in my last year of school, so I was just about to sit my GCSEs. So yeah, that hit us quite hard as a family, not knowing what to expect. And my mum went through the treatments of, chemotherapy, radiotherapy, operation. She had a mastectomy, and the chemotherapy hit her really hard. She was really, really poorly. I remember a lot of ambulance journeys that she had to endure, through fainting, through being sick, through not being able to keep anything down. The side effects of the chemotherapy was just awful. And yeah, so that was quite a tough journey. She did her rounds of chemotherapy, then radiotherapy, and we thought we were okay for a bit.
Sort of sticking with that point, how old were you when she first got diagnosed? Did you say 15?
15, 16, yeah.
So how would that have, that's obviously the years where you're sort of first starting to go out drinking and hanging out with your mates and boys and all sorts. How did that affect that for you? How did you feel?
Yeah, looking back now, I kind of blocked it out. I didn't realise the seriousness of what was going on with mum. Typical teenager, thinking, oh, she's all right, she's just been sick, she'll be okay. I was still going out with friends, still being a little bit rebellious, but not, I knew that I didn't want to put more stress on her. I probably did. I think you do anyway, don't you, as a child and a teenager, but
you learn that from having kids of your own.
Yeah. So yeah, I think I kind of blocked a lot of it out, and looking back now, I have called myself selfish, but back then I didn't know the seriousness of it. I think what I know now, I wish I could have done things differently, but again, being a teenager, I wouldn't have known the life skills and the empathy that I've got now for my mum's struggles. So yeah, it was difficult, but I think I blocked a lot of it out.
So how long did that last until she'd sort of got the all clear? Did you say she had a mastectomy then?
Yeah, she did. She had a mastectomy, then chemotherapy again, then radiotherapy, and then I think we were okay for a while. I mean, she had side effects still from chemotherapy. She was on medication for life, so typical aches and pains still through that. And I remember her suffering from lymphedema actually, because it went into her lymph nodes and she had to have quite a few lymph nodes taken out. So I always remember her being well and cancer free, but not being well because she had the side effects of everything else that came with it.
Okay. Just sticking on the first one just for a minute, I wanted to know if you'd, obviously being quite young, you probably wouldn't have even thought about any of this stuff, but would any of the alternate medicines or any other sort of way of life and diet and those sort of things, would they have come into your thinking at that time, or never, not even come into your mind?
No, nothing crossed my mind at all that there could have been an alternative.
And you didn't have any sort of advice from any sort of professionals that would talk about diet and talk about lifestyle and... Okay, it's interesting.
No, absolutely nothing whatsoever. No doctors or oncologists helped my mum in terms of managing the chemo side effects. I didn't know anything. I just trusted everything that everyone said and thought that was how it was supposed to be. But yeah, I wish I knew then what I know now.
Yeah.
Things might be different, they might not, who knows, but I wasn't aware of anything back then. I wasn't knowledgeable, I wasn't independent enough to do my own research back then, and I suppose I didn't realise how serious her diagnosis was. I just trusted that she was going to have chemotherapy, have radiotherapy and get better.
I suppose when you're young as well, it's just you're young and carefree, you don't sort of think about life, you don't know much about life at that stage, you're still sort of learning. So let's move on to 2015. Obviously I'd come into your life, Gracie had then come into our lives, 2014. I can vaguely remember your mum sort of finding out there was something wrong for Gracie. Did Gracie lean on her or something?
Yeah.
Boob, and she felt, oh, that was a sharp.
I think Gracie pinched her boob.
Right.
The remaining boob, we should say. I think we were in New York because my mum didn't want to tell me while we were away.
Okay.
And it was when she was looking after Gracie. So yeah, we came back and that's when she said, I've got something to tell you. I'm being checked for breast cancer again, but in the other boob. So yeah, I suppose we've got our little girl to thank for that by pinching her boob and
catching it early.
Yeah, making her aware of the pain that was abnormal, I suppose. So then that came back that she did have breast cancer again in her other boob, but this time it was a different cancer. It was more, the first cancer was lobular, which was just lots of little lumps, whereas this one was a solid lump, I think. But she had another mastectomy. I think because she caught it early, she didn't have to go through the chemo and radio stage. I think she had like the tablet form chemo, I think that was what it was, because she got it early and it hadn't spread anywhere. That was back in 2019, wasn't it?
That was when she was first diagnosed, wasn't it?
Yeah, when it had spread to her liver, yeah.
Did she find out while we were away or just before we went away?
I think it was just before.
So we made that holiday sort of one to remember. We'd done everything. We got up straight away in the morning, gone out, done stuff, and seen loads of sights, and she sort of had the time of her life. She loved it, didn't she? Talk us through that COVID 6 months, 8 months. So at that time, obviously you were heavily pregnant. You know what you know. So what was your sort of thoughts and feelings from them? Were you sort of right? What can we do? What can I research? Were you at that stage yet?
No. Again, we trusted everything that everyone was saying, and I think you just go through life, don't you, trusting what the oncologists and the nurses and doctors have to say. So even in then, I wasn't open at all. I started questioning lockdowns and COVID though, but not anything to do with the cancer industry. I didn't question any of that. I just thought, they're doing right by my mum, they're looking after my mum. Yeah, from June, when I gave birth to little Ralph, from so he was 5 months old when she passed, so she got 5 good months with him, didn't she?
Yeah. We did a lot in those 5 months as well, didn't we?
Yeah, we did, but we still didn't know at that point, did we, what was to come?
No.
It was only maybe the end of September time was when she started getting poorly. And then I think that went into early October. And yeah, I think she finally spoke to them and said, can you do a blood test, because I can't keep food down, can't keep anything down. And yeah, she was really suffering, wasn't she?
She suffered with her feet really bad, didn't she?
Yeah,
I think that was
she
like the main, because I was thinking, oh, it's only feet, like obviously she's suffering, but it's only feet, so that's sort of not going to be life threatening. And then sort of that seemed to be the trigger for going downhill, like her feet. So that was that was a strange one.
So she suffered with neuropathy, I think that's what you call it, and that was a chemo side effect. So she had numbness, tingling, all sorts of weird sensations in her feet. But yeah, I think with her being poorly, the end of September 2020 and the beginning of October, when she then realised she needed to go into hospital, we didn't know at the time that it was obviously her liver failing. And that was what was making her sick. She had toxins flying around her body, and there was nowhere for them to go, because obviously we know that liver filters now. I didn't know that back then. I didn't know how serious of an organ the liver was. So I think because the liver wasn't able to filter out anything, the toxins were just landing in her body, and obviously gravity was pulling it all to the bottom of her feet, so her feet were swelling. And yeah, we didn't realise, did we, at the time,
No,
it's another side effect.
It's like a normal thing for her to have swollen feet.
Yeah.
It would have been maybe like a normal thing, like just stick your feet up and the swelling will go down and it'll be okay. But then I do think now, maybe looking back, and I know we probably spoke about this before, but looking back on pictures of that time, you start thinking, oh, actually, how did we not notice that? Her skin was like really yellow, and how did we not notice that? Well, I didn't at the time. I don't know if you did, but like at the time, I can remember not even giving it a second thought. But then looking back in pictures and thinking, oh, actually, like, yeah, her skin was like abnormally yellow, like compared to like what her skin usually was.
Yeah.
But yeah, maybe that's something that you sort of see when you look back at pictures, and when you're in the moment, you don't sort of notice anything like that. But
I suppose because we saw her every day, I didn't notice that her skin was yellowing. Again, that's a sign of liver failure, and we didn't know. So yeah, in October, she got the blood results, and we got pulled into the room, and that was probably the start of the most traumatic time me and my mum had ever had together. And hearing the words of, the blood test has come back, your cancer markers are through the roof, and there's absolutely nothing more we can do for you now. And I was sat there and I was thinking, what do you mean there's absolutely nothing more you can do? Like, and he said the chemo's not responding. You think, how? You told me 18 months ago drugs work better than transplants or operations, but now you're telling me the drugs aren't working. So I just couldn't get my head around the whole thing. I said to him, how long has she got? And he didn't want to say. And then that's when he said, I think she's got weeks, months left to live, maybe years. And I knew that he said that, the years, to kind of
make you feel better.
Yeah, when you don't go from weeks, months to then years. So then he said, yeah, we think weeks to months. And I think we were just sat in the room, we didn't know what to say. We were thinking, how have you just told us that my mum has got weeks, months left to live? How am I ever going to live without my mum? And I've got to prepare for 4 weeks, for months to, like, how is this ever going to be a possibility? Like, and then I thought, no, it's not. I'm not letting you say that to us. So then we left that room, and then we got put in a private room, and my mum just broke. But we never saw it come in, so we were just, I think she thought, right, yeah, now it's actually happening to me, so I need that help. And yeah, she looked to me for that in that moment, and kept saying to her, this is not happening, we're not going to let it happen. This is it now. No one's going to tell me that you're going to die. So I think even that night was when I started going down rabbit holes and like researching all sorts of different things. I think you came into contact with someone who had done the alternative medicine, and that led me on the path to start researching all of that. Just unfortunately we didn't have enough time. from the minute we got that appointment in that room where he said that to us, it was exactly 4 weeks she passed away.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
If you were going to sort of speak to somebody that's going through the same thing, and you could go back in time, when would you start thinking about the alternative medicine?
Right at the very beginning. As soon as the very first diagnosis is there, right from the very beginning. But I suppose it's the same thing. Like, I've come across a lot of people that have gone through the same cancer journey as my mum, and when they first get diagnosed, their first thought isn't to start researching. Their first thought is, cancer's a death sentence. I need to do and listen to whoever's going to help me get better, and the trust is always in the oncologists and the nurses and doctors and hospitals, I suppose. So you, at that point, it's so, the word cancer is so scary, they don't want to listen and don't want to look into anything else, and I completely can understand that. But if there's anything I've learned, even still researching now since my mum's passed, cancer is not a death sentence. There's a reason why people suffer with cancer, and it's to do with the mechanics of the body. It's not designed to kill us. I remember my mum always saying to me, if this cancer doesn't kill me, the chemotherapy is going to kill me.
Yeah, always.
And I think her death ended up being the side effect of the chemotherapy treatment. She actually died of sepsis because of her liver failing and the chemotherapy not making her immune system strong enough to fight it. It just was not strong enough to fight off the infection, regardless of what antibiotics and whatever they were putting in her. Her body just wasn't strong enough because it had been ruined by chemotherapy and radiotherapy prior, and we didn't realise that until it was too late. I think I was a little bit strict on her diet. I created her a new diet plan, didn't I, in the last 4 weeks, and it was really difficult because I remember my sister saying to me, let her have that blimmin' chocolate cake, and I kept saying, no, she's not allowed sugar, she's got to cut that out. And then I kept thinking, well, what if this is her last 4 weeks on earth? I want her to enjoy that blimmin' chocolate cake. I want her to, but a part of me was thinking, no, we're going to have longer than 4 weeks, so I am going to prolong this, and I am going to give her a strict diet. And God, I was making her drink all sorts and eat all sorts. I completely changed everything, but she went along with it. I knew sometimes she was like, oh, I just want that cake, I just want this. And so I know sometimes she was a bit like, oh, bloody hell, here she goes again with her diet. But I also knew that she knew where I was coming from, and I was coming from a good place, and I wanted to help her, give her body the best environment possible to help fight it. It was just unfortunate we didn't have enough time.
You knew the intentions are right, but that's probably a catch-22 that anyone listening to this has been through, sort of, even in their mind that hasn't been through the situation. I sort of make that situation in my mind, like, what would I do? Would I starve it of sugar and really try and get better and sort of do everything I could, or would I be like, fuck it, I've got a couple of weeks, I'm having fucking Chinese tonight, pizza tomorrow, Indian the next day, and I'm going to enjoy this.
Yeah. So yeah, I suppose the real alternative medicine that we discovered didn't come to fruition until she was in hospital, when it was way too late then. She went in hospital on November the 1st and didn't come out, and passed away on November the 8th. So yeah, I think if we had more time, absolutely, I'm very confident that we could have got her somewhere along a decent survival level. But who knows?
And what was that week like from November the 1st to November the 8th? Just talk us through that week.
Yeah, one of the worst, again, not the worst week of my life, obviously, but one of them. Again, we were through COVID during lockdowns, and it was just awful, the separation between our family. Mum being in hospital, she was only allowed to be assigned one person to visit her. And between...
Because of COVID?
Yeah, because of COVID and lockdowns and the restrictions. And that was probably one of the hardest decisions anyone would have to make. Me and my sister were very close to Mum, so yeah, it was very difficult. And my sister didn't even doubt it. She just said, "You've got to go. she knew what I was going to be like, I think, and I'll always have her to thank for that. Like, she didn't, as much as it hurt and broke my sister that she wasn't allowed in to see her, she knew that that's what I needed, and yeah, I'm forever grateful for that. So yeah, that last week it was just me assigned to going in and seeing my mum. We had a 2-hour visiting window every single day, and still at this point I still thought she was going to come out of hospital. I still thought she was going to come out and live. Like, I didn't, never in my wildest dreams did I think that she was never going to come out. So yeah, the first day was when she got put on the first ward, and I was allowed in for 2 hours. Still didn't really know what was going on. I don't even think the doctors knew what was happening really. Just that her infection markers were high, so they started her on a round of antibiotics. She always had trouble with her veins though, so them getting the antibiotics in her veins was just a task in itself. The third day was the Tuesday, so she went in on the Sunday, and I just remember this day being stuck in my head. I went in and seen her on the Tuesday, and I couldn't wake her, and that scared me, because I thought, oh, this is weird, this isn't like my mum. Like, I knew she was having trouble sleeping, but not to the point where I was like nudging her and I couldn't wake her. So then I had to call for help, and one of the doctors came and, you know, really shook her, and it scared my mum, and my mum was a bit delirious after that. And I was, how has that changed from me seeing her Sunday, Monday to now coming in today, and she's this different woman. She's delirious, she's confused, she's sleepy. And so I don't know what possessed me to do it, but I was looking on her medical records, and one of her medicines hadn't been ticked off. So I said to my mum, have you had these medicines? She said, no, they're in my bag. So I looked in her bag, and the medicine was still in there, but all the other medicines were out. So obviously the doctors had given her the other medicines, but not her steroids. So I questioned at this point, why has she not been given her steroids? And they actually forgot to give her the steroids, and the steroids was essentially what was giving her the energy to keep going. So anyway, they gave her the steroids, and over the next day or two, she perked up a lot. By Thursday, actual lockdown came into position, another lockdown, so I wasn't allowed in at this point. Again, at this point, we still didn't know that she was going to pass. She was on end of life care, we didn't know. So ringing the hospitals on the Thursday, finding out information, and the end of life care nurse spoke to me and said, we're in the process of getting her community based at home, so we want her to get the help for home. And I thought, actually, my mum would prefer to be at home regardless of what was going to happen. And I don't know if I was still in denial at this point. I still didn't know what they were sending her home for. All I knew was that they were getting a community care pack ready for her to send her home. And I think it was nearing the weekend at this point, so they weren't able to do it until the Monday, because they don't work on weekends. So we were like, okay, that's fine, we'll get her home on Monday. And then it got to, I think it was Saturday. I think we fought, didn't we? And we fought for me to go in on the Friday and Saturday. And I think the head of the ward or head of the hospital was like, yeah, of course you can come in. If they're talking about end of life care to you, you can't lock down, kind of just, you know, they let you in on compassionate grounds. So yeah, I think on the Saturday, me and my sister were both allowed in, but at this point we still hadn't been made aware of how serious this end of life care package was. In our minds, we were still thinking, oh, we've got ages, we'll be able to do this. And it wasn't until the doctor came round and he said, the antibiotics aren't working, so we've got to make a choice. And my mum at this point was she'd had enough of being pinpricked everywhere. She had bruises, and you know, we knew her veins weren't working at this point, and she was like, I've had enough, I don't want you to keep injecting me anymore. At this point I still didn't know what was going on, so I said to the doctor, you know, what will happen now? And he said, well, his arms, he literally just went, she could get sepsis, she could not get sepsis, and then he walked out. And at that point I was like, I still didn't realise the seriousness of it, I didn't understand. But apparently, because me and my sister were both allowed in on the ward, a few other people were complaining that we were in the ward, so we got told. So then they moved us to a private room. So my idea of us being moved to a private room was because other people were complaining that my mum was allowed visitors and they weren't. Actually, they moved us to a private room because they knew my mum was going to pass, but they still didn't say anything to us.
Yeah.
So we stayed there until about.
We discussed the hospice as well, didn't we, at some stage?
Yeah, that was in some sort of conversation, but I didn't know if that was to do with the community care.
Yeah, because I can remember speaking to the hospice. Western Hospice are amazing, by the way.
Absolutely amazing.
And the lady that I'd spoke to could not do enough. They were trying to arrange for her to be transferred from the hospital to the hospice, which is 5 minutes down the road. But they were being met with loads of problems, and they couldn't get it done. But the lady that I'd spoke to, even though your mum wasn't in her care, she could not have done enough, and she was ringing back and asking me this question, and how can we make this happen, and how is she today, is everything okay? And like, they're just angels. They're real life angels. I think Western Hospice, they're brilliant, which is the reason why we wanted her to go there. We'd rather have been in the hospice and had however long she had in the hospice than being in the hospital in a room.
Yeah.
Because we've obviously seen the hospice and experienced the hospice before, and we knew that would be sort of by far the best place for her. But yeah, that couldn't happen for whatever reason. So
I think there was a lot of red tape, wasn't there, because of the restrictions that was happening with COVID. But the treatment that she got in the hospital was so disappointing that I'm gutted she wasn't able to go into the hospice. She didn't want to go into the hospice, she wanted to be at home. However, the hospice would have been the next best thing, but yeah, unfortunately she didn't make it anywhere because of all the red tape that was around. And that's no disrespect to the hospice whatsoever. They bent over backwards, didn't they, to try and do whatever they could to make it happen. But yeah, we were met with a lot of restrictions. We then got put into this side room, and we still didn't know. We still weren't told what was happening and what we were going to lead up to. We were there. Mum started getting a bit confused, but I just thought that was like medication. And we were there till 10:30 at night, and we decided to leave. And that was the first time that one of the changeover nurses said to me, if anything's going to happen through the night, we'll ring you straight away anyway. And I'm thinking, what do you think is going to happen through the night? And then she said, we don't think it's going to happen until tomorrow anyway, but if anything happens through the night, you should go home and get rest. And I don't know if I'm still in denial at this point, thinking, I don't know what you're telling me here, but okay, I'll go home. I don't really want to go home. I feel like I need to be here. But both my sister and the nurse said, we think it's better if we all go home, get some rest, well needed rest, because we've been there all day. And yeah, I went home at about 10:30, and then we got the dreaded phone call at, I think it was 1:15 in the morning.
I remember that like it was yesterday.
Yeah, I think looking at my phone, it was 1:16 a.m. that I got the phone call that her breathing had changed, so we need you to come back in. And yeah, we had to rush in and be with her. And at that point I didn't know what to expect at that point. I'd never seen anything like it before in my life. So walking into that room was just, I can't even explain it. I can't. And when I've spoke to people before, when they've been at people's bedsides, when they've watched their family members die, they've not explained what I've explained. So I don't know the difference, and I don't know why it was so different, but a lot of people have said, well, yeah, they passed in their sleep, their breathing was changed or whatever, but what I saw was just another level of traumatizing, and I didn't really know what to expect. The first part of my mental health journey started that day, but even then I didn't know what was going on with my body. When I got in there, I said to my sister, what's going on? Why is she like that? I don't understand that. I don't get why she's looking like agitated, and I don't want to go into detail, but and my sister was like, yeah, I'm not sure. And my sister had worked with end of life care before, so I said, should we call the doctor in, because I'm not sure that that's normal. So we called her in, and I said, is she agitated? Is she in pain? And they said, we don't know because she can't tell us, but we do think she's agitated. And I said, well, can you do something about it then, please? That's not normal. And then so I sat there, and they said, we can go and get some more drugs to calm her down. And I said, yeah, can you go and do it? And they said, yeah, but we've got to ring the doctor first. I said, no, don't ring the doctor, just do it. You'd already given her half of it, so give her the other half. But I know that they've obviously got to go through the protocols and stuff. So I sat back down in the chair and I started going really funny. And I said to my sister, I'm really hot, I'm sweating. She was like, I'm freezing. It was in the middle of the night, it was really cold in November. And I was actually sweating, and I said, can you open the window? She said, she opened the window. And I thought, oh, maybe my sugar levels are going. Like, I hadn't eaten. So yeah, I tried to eat a chocolate bar, and I just remember I couldn't lift my hand to my mouth. It was like someone was holding my hand back, like, you're not eating that. I said to my sister, I'm going to fall off this chair in a minute. I feel really faint. I didn't know what it was. She goes, I'll try and eat that chocolate. So I was trying to eat the chocolate. My mum was still doing what she was doing. And I thought, why are they taking so long? I don't want to see this. I can't see this. And then I said to my sister, I don't know what I need, but I need help. Like, I'm scared of how I'm feeling. And I don't know what was happening then. I didn't know at that point that my body was going into panic, and that was my first real panic attack. So then I had to be wheelchaired out of the hospital to outside, and the minute I felt that fresh air, oh, it was amazing. And I thought, oh, I can go back in now. And the nurse said, no, you're not going back in. You can't go back in yet. You need to calm down. So then I remember sitting in my brother-in-law's car for what felt like a lifetime, and I didn't realise that at that time my mum was in that room taking her last breath. I couldn't get my head around it. I think the panic was still there. I couldn't really, generalise what was going on. And then my sister's husband got out of the car, and I thought, where are you going? He answered his phone, and that was when my mum had passed, and he said, yeah, she's gone. And I went, she's gone? And I was thinking, where's she gone? I don't really know what was going on. So then I got wheelchaired back up to the room, and I was like, oh, can I go to the toilet? Not realising the seriousness of what had happened. So yeah, I went to the toilet and then came back in, and that was, my mum had taken her last breath while I was outside. And they say, I think she would have wanted that, and I think she made that happen.
Yeah, you defied that for so long, didn't you? I can remember saying, because obviously it's a bit different, but I'd had my nan and my granddad and been through exactly the same scenario in terms of the end of life, completely different scenario, but similar. And it really is, like, you hear people say it and you think, no, that's not true, there's no way that's true. But then when you actually experience it 1,000,000% is true. They don't want certain people in the room while it's happening. And her being sort of non-verbal towards the end and being agitated, that could have been a part of, like, get her out of here. I don't want, get her out of here now. I don't want her in here. So it 1,000,000% is a fact, and there's too many cases of it happening. You've sat there for days and days and days and days and days and days. The minute you go outside,
she's gone.
It's not a coincidence. Like, that doesn't happen as a coincidence.
I remember the car ride home thinking, oh God, I said to my sister, can you watch me? Can you look out for me? Because I don't know how to deal with this. I don't know how to get through this. I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do now without my mum. I don't know where I'm supposed to go. Like, it was just strange, wasn't it? Yeah. Really strange.
So I know everybody would say this, and it's a cliche, but it was like our whole world sort of crashed down that day. And it's the fear of the unknown. It's the fear of sort of, like you just said, how am I going to live without my mum, and how is our life going to be without, how is our kids going to be without their nan, and just that fear of the unknown. And I think that's what made that first few weeks like really, really tough. Then going on to, like, obviously the first few weeks was horrendous, and you got straight into sort of planning. You love a plan. Planning the funeral and making sure everything was sorted in our house, and all the stuff that sort of takes so much strength that people don't realise. You've got to do these things. You don't want to do these things. You want to sit there and grieve and not see anybody and cry and whatever, but you've got, there's no one else to do it. You've got to spring into action, and you've got to be strong, and you've got to do what you need to do. And you did. Like, her funeral, you and Kaz obviously arranged most of it, your sister. You said your mental health journey started at the hospital bed. Would you say the sort of next phase of it started after the funeral?
Yeah, I suppose so. So her funeral was December, and you kind of just go into autopilot. We knew we were on a time schedule with our house, so we sorted all of that out, sorted the funeral. And yeah, obviously I love a plan, I love doing stuff, and there was nothing for me to do. We were still kind of on the restrictions with COVID, and it was just, I think for the next year, I kind of went numb to it, didn't I? I don't know, obviously I was still upset, but I think it wasn't until 2022, and my body was it just came to a halt, didn't it? I think I ploughed through 2021, knowing that I've got kids and what else can I do? I can't do anything else. My mum's gone now. We've done all the planning that we needed to do for her. And yeah, that year I just went back, just ploughed on. And then in 2022 was when my body actually said to me, no, you haven't done this properly. You haven't dealt with this properly. Don't ignore it anymore. And I think it floored me. And that was, again, the physical symptoms, which at the time I still didn't know it was a panic attack, but it just knocked me for 6. And I genuinely thought, am I going to die here? Is this me now? Is this my turn?
So you didn't understand it obviously at the time, but now you do understand it. So where you just said that your body's telling you that you need to stop and grieve, or there's something wrong, what are the signs for the people sort of that are maybe going through it or don't understand it, or who are doing this for the first time? Sort of what was the signs that your body gave you to tell you that you were going through that?
So I think everyone deals with it differently, and the symptoms are different for everyone. I mean, I've spoken to quite a few people after, and some of the symptoms are different. However, physical symptoms that you're not used to, when you know that you've had a major state of stress, or you've been riddled with anxiety for a long time, or you know that you're just burning out and your body is giving you these telltale symptoms that maybe we go along for a long time ignoring them, but at that point it does come to a point where it floors you. So my symptoms, I felt like I was going to faint. I remember sitting on the sofa for the first time, and the room was spinning, and I panicked, and I said to you, ring an ambulance, I don't know what's happening to me, I feel like I'm going to faint. And then I started getting cramping in my toes, in my legs and my fingers, and I couldn't move them, could I? I remember my fingers like this, and you were on the phone to an ambulance. I then started not being able to breathe, which then made me panic more. And I kept just wanting to flop back a little bit, didn't I? I didn't really know what was happening, but I knew that wasn't normal. I knew that something serious was happening. I think at the time, did we think that I had kidney stones or something? Because we didn't really know what was going on, and I thought I was needing to be tested for something that was actually happening, because I had stomachache, didn't I, at the same time?
So there was a good few weeks where we'd sort of been to the hospital multiple times, and you were still getting these physical symptoms, but it was also mixed with the mental symptoms that were heightening everything that you had. So every small physical pain you had, your mind was telling you that it was something big, because of, we now know it was the start of a breakdown. So we would go to Bridgewater, which is sort of 20 minutes up the road from us, go to that hospital, and then we'd be like, they're rubbish, they're not giving me any information. Get me to Southmead, get me to the BRI in Bristol, we'll go to Weston tomorrow. We're talking sort of 3 o'clock in the morning. I'd ring my mum and say, Mum, can you come here and have the kids? In case she's in a lot of pain and she wants to be checked out, she can't breathe, she thinks she's having a heart attack. It could be something different the next day. And every single one we went to, done all the tests and went through it and said, no, there's no physical problems, you haven't got any. And I can remember your defiance of, because we didn't understand it, mental health had never really been a part of our lives.
No.
You've sort of gone, I don't agree, there's something wrong, I need a second opinion. And maybe through your experiences with your mum, you've sort of gone, I don't trust hospitals anymore.
Yeah.
So let's get to Taunton, let's get to Musgrove, let's go and find out, let's go and see what they're saying. And then was it Musgrove the first one that mentioned, I think Musgrove were the first ones that mentioned it could be mental.
Because it was through A&E, and he said, like, your bloods are fine, your blood pressure's fine, everything's fine. I think it's a neurological problem, and you may need to see someone. That was the first time when I thought, neurological, is that to do with the brain? Oh my word, what's going on with my brain? And then I'm thinking the worst. But then he said, no, we just feel like something's going on up here. And then he was the only one that asked me and said to me, has anything happened that's changed your life? And that was it. I thought, wow, it was the first time. So weeks and weeks of going back and forth to A&E. God, I lived in Western A&E, didn't I, through the night? And not one of them questioned my mental health. Not one of them. Not one of them knew that any of my symptoms were to do with my mental health. So yeah, Musgrove was the first one that made us look into it. And then your mum actually said to me, didn't she, I think you're having a breakdown.
Well, yeah, I can remember. It's one of them things, like, also for the people that have sort of husbands or wives or brothers or sisters, mums, dads, anyone else that are going through it with somebody, you have know, after all this time of weeks and weeks of going to the hospital and the pains and the times of it happening and all the details, because you're thinking logically, you sort of know it probably is a mental thing. There probably is nothing going on, and there's another reason for this. But if I was the one who had mentioned that, that would have been World War III. So my advice to these people would be just go along, do whatever you can, be there, have your kids if you've got kids, and just be there as much as you can, because it will get better. And I can remember my mum ringing me, because my mum's cousin, who we're really, really close with, she'd been through a lot of mental health issues and she was really clued up on it. And my mum had spoke to her and she'd had really, really similar symptoms. She'd gone through really, really similar, and she understood it. I'm not sure, it must have been after Musgrove had mentioned it to you, because I think you were still a little bit defiant after Musgrove. I think it probably clicked in your mind, but then you thought, I'm not 100%, because it's something we'd never been through before.
Yeah.
And then I can remember my mum saying, I'm going to get her around my house, because you had some really bad times at my mum's, didn't you, around my mum's house. And I can remember her saying, I'm going to get Glenda round and we're going to sit down and we're going to have a chat.
Yeah.
And that made me really nervous, because I'm like, I wanted to be there for you, and I wanted you to know that we don't think it's mental, and if you do have these symptoms, physical, then we're still going to be here, and I'll still take you to the hospital every day. It is what it is. Like, but I can remember coming out of that and being like, I'm so thankful that happened.
I am as well, because I think a lot of people that don't really know, when people talk about mental health and the stigmas around mental health, I was ignorant to it as well, and I didn't want to downplay what I was going through, and I felt that at the time when people were saying, oh, I think you're having a breakdown, I think you're going through a mental health stage, I thought, no, this is serious, this is bigger than this. Actually, mental health is serious now. Like, I was really ignorant to realise how bad mental health can affect you. I just thought it was just brain, but mental health can give you physical symptoms, and those physical symptoms, I genuinely thought I was dying. I genuinely thought something was happening to my heart. I thought something was happening to my brain. I thought getting the worst. Obviously, seeing my mum go through it, and I thought, this is happening to me now. When actually, it was mental health. It was all to do with what my brain was trying to protect me from, but I didn't feel like it was protecting me. So yeah, I don't think I realised, and that's the same, like, mental health needs to be made aware. It can't just be shrugged off, and I wanted to shrug it off because I thought, no, this is more than mental health. There's nothing more than mental health.
No.
Mental health illness is absolutely horrendous.
So do you feel like that, having that conversation with my mum's cousin when she came round, and sort of, do you feel like you could relate to her, knowing what she's been through? She was really poorly mentally. Was that the first person that you could sort of relate to and think, oh, actually, if she's been through that, she's going to be talking some sense here?
Yeah.
Because it's not coming from a doctor who's trying to fob you off or trying to do this, and in your mind you're probably still thinking, that doctor's trying to fob me off, he just don't want to check me out, he don't want to spend the time on me. But then someone you know and trust is telling you that she's been through exactly the same thing. Is that something that sort of clicked in your mind and made you sort of, from that day, sort of address that situation?
100%. And I knew that she's one of the most genuine people, isn't she? So I knew that she wasn't just sitting there feeding me a load of rubbish. And she was questioning me as in, like, so I had this symptom, do you have that? And I'm like, yes I do, but no one understands it. And she's like, did it do this? Did it link to that? Did it go on to them? And the pattern was there, and I'm like, wow, like, yeah. So then at that point I was like, please help me. Please just do anything you can to get me out of this. I just need to get away from this. I don't care where I go, what happens to me, just I need all of this to just disappear. And she was like, it's not going to disappear straight away. And that I was like, oh, didn't know what to say, but I knew from then that the only way was up. And even if, I mean, we battled a little bit, didn't we, with different doctors and medications and whatever, because I was against medication. I didn't want to go on medication, but I'll tell you what, that medication has saved my life. That has absolutely, I'm still on it today, and I don't think I'll ever come off it.
No.
I mean, I'm also doing the other bits as well to help me. I'm not just relying on medication, because my thoughts on medication are, you know, for a different time. But yeah, honestly, that conversation with your mum and Glenda probably saved my life, because I didn't want to have that feeling anymore. I didn't know what to do. I was begging you to take me to a hospital, wasn't I?
Yeah.
I was begging you to put me in Longfox. I needed to be taken away, and I needed something to happen.
Yeah.
So yeah, I will forever be grateful.
Yeah, I can remember sort of it was a real taboo of every time I mentioned sort of medication, it was, I am not going on medication, no way, don't mention it again, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
But I can remember Joe Marler, rugby player, just retired now from England. He's had mental health issues. He's a big, broad, stocky rugby player. He's funny, laughs and jokes, probably the funniest bloke I've ever seen. He's genius. But there was a documentary, and he went through similar, and he went on tablets and said they changed his life. They're what help. If it's an illness, if you've got a headache, it really stuck with me. He was saying if you've got a headache, you will have a paracetamol. If you've got mental health, you have to have a tablet. It's an illness. It's something that makes you better. And the same as with a headache, you could probably drink water, you could do this and it'd make you better, you could sleep, and there's the natural things. Exactly the same with mental health. There's yoga, there's this, there's whatever else it may be. Like they're obviously there, but the tablets are there to help you, and the proof's in the pudding. It really, really, really does work.
And I think I needed a quick fix, because my mind was spiraling. So as much as I looked into the healthy side of dealing with my mental health with yoga, meditation, reading, researching, I did courses, gave myself tips of how to cope that side. I knew that was going to take a long time, and I haven't got time. I've got kids, I've got a husband, I've got a house to run, I had a salon to run. I knew that I needed that quick fix, and not only because of all those bits, but because I genuinely didn't want to feel like that anymore. And I was scared for the longer that I felt like that, something was I didn't know where my mind was taking me, and that was what was scaring me, because I didn't want to feel like that anymore. I couldn't feel like that anymore. So I needed that quick fix, and that's that. Yeah, I mean, you do have to do the groundwork for why you probably are suffering with mental health. There's always a trigger. There's always something.
First of all, tell me what the few months or after you'd had that conversation with my mum and her cousin, tell me what the day-to-day for the first few months of that looked like. What for the people that are going through it, that think not normal and this isn't normal, tell me what those days were like for you.
So I was bedbound, I think, wasn't I, for a good few weeks. The physical symptoms were so debilitating that I couldn't get out of bed. I remember being upset because I couldn't change my son's nappy. I couldn't come downstairs and make their lunch boxes. I was scared to move my bed. My bed became my safe place. And I kept thinking to myself, am I ever gonna get out of this? Am I ever gonna be able to be a mum again? Am I ever gonna be able to go outside? Like, the thought of going outside or going to your mum's for a coffee was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And I remember you ringing around a few counsellors, because I said, I think we were ringing because I was begging you to take me to Longfox, and you spoke to someone and someone said, don't take her there because it will make her worse. And I was like, no, I need to go now. I feel like I need it. And actually, you then ended up speaking to the counsellor, who I'm still with now, 4 years later, and she made me see of why my body went the way it did, and she gave me a little bit of homework. She gave me a few steps to learn, and that's what made me realise, yeah, I've lost my mum. Like, that's massive, that's huge, and that's changed my whole dynamic of my life. So of course it's going to change my brain chemistry. I've now got to learn to be this adult grown up in this new world, and she made me realise that she stripped it right back and took me right back to day one, and she was like, your body's gone into overdrive to stop you and teach you that you do need to learn to grieve, you need to learn to deal with this, you need to sit with the pain, don't ignore it, sit with the pain, and there are ways to help you get through that pain. And I just think if anyone is feeling the way that I've mentioned, just seek help. Just seek help. You're not a burden. You're not putting a downer on anyone's life. People want you to be okay, and the best thing I can suggest is talking about it.
Yeah.
Talking therapy is just the way forward for me, and my counsellor made me see things that I never knew. So I learned, again, I was always learning from her, and I still am now to this day when I come to her with other issues. And I think what you're sat at home feeling, that one conversation with that one person could put you on a whole new path.
Yeah.
And you just need to bite the bullet and go for it. And God, I used to turn up at her house. I hadn't showered for weeks. I was still in my pajamas. I
shaking and crying.
Yeah, I felt like, just someone help me, just someone. I don't care who it is. I just needed that help. And from that first appointment, along with medication, it just turned my whole life around.
It just gives you hope.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's the thing, just because that feeling that you'll have is, this is never going to get better.
Yeah.
I'm never going to feel better. I'm going to feel like this forever.
Yeah.
And just keeping it in your mind that there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. There's always something that's going to make you feel better, and that will be a catalyst. And it could be something small. It could be anything. You could wake up one day and it could be sunny, yeah, and there could be a robin on your wall outside, and that is it. You're like, hold on, life's not actually too bad.
Mm-hmm.
And I think something that's really resonated with me, Paul Merson, ex-footballer, he's an addict. He's been addicted to gambling, drugs, alcohol most of his life since he was sort of 16. And he talked about that as an illness. And in terms of mental health, a lot of the things align with addiction. So in terms of thinking that you're never going to get better, you need to do this, as a mental illness. So he used to say, one day at a time, and I know it's a cliche, but get through that one day.
Yeah.
Don't think, he said if you asked him if he's never going to drink again, he'd be like, shit, that's a big task.
Yeah.
There's no way I can do that. And it's the same with mental health. Like, are you ever going to be okay again? I don't know. I don't think I am. Not ever. Like, what about this? What about this in the future? And how am I ever going to do that? You've just said it. How am I ever going to do this with my kids? And how am I ever going to do this? And how am I going to leave my bed? But when you shorten that right down, and you say to, Paul Merson explains it really, really well. He says, if you say to me, are you going to drink today when I wake up? My answer is no. I know that I can get through 24 hours. Easy. I know I can do it. Same with mental health. I know I'm going to make this 24 hours better than yesterday. And then if I can't do 24 hours and I start panicking after an hour, I'm going to lower that time and I'm going to say, right, for 12 hours today, I'm going to be brilliant. I'll reassess. It's 7 in the morning now. I'll reassess at 7 at night. Or you take that down to an hour. If you need to, I'm going to do an hour. And then the next day, once you've done an hour comfortably, with addiction, it's not using. With mental health, it'll be, I'm going to play with my kids for an hour. Or I'm going to do this, I'm going to go and cook tea. Or I'm going to go and clean downstairs. I'm going to go and get in the shower. It could be anything. Those little steps slowly build up. And that, in my opinion, that is what makes you better.
And I remember being, because I'm the most impatient person ever, and I remember thinking, I can't get through the next hour. I want to get better now. And you're telling me to just look at one step at a time. And even like the mundane tasks, telling me to get in the shower, I'm like, I can't get in the shower. I can't get out of bed. I can't do this. And it's just like little tasks, but once you do that little task, you'll realise it's not actually that bad. And it is the fear, and you know, something as little as a shower I was scared to do because I didn't want to leave my bed, which was my safe haven. but you kind of have to push yourself to do it. The little uncomfortable tasks that you really don't want to do will get less and less uncomfortable the more you do them.
Yeah.
So then that first day I had a shower, I stayed in there for ages, and I thought, oh, I loved this. I loved the feeling of the water coming off me. So then I went back to bed, and that was okay, because I knew that I'd done that big step of getting in the shower. Yeah.
But the first stage, I was probably had to take you to the shower.
Yeah, and sit with me.
And sit with you.
Yeah.
And wait for you to finish. But then after a couple of times, like you said, you're progressing. Then I don't have to be there.
Yeah.
And then you're going back. But that is all like forward steps, and people that are probably going through it think that's not really a forward step. But now looking back, that's what led you to where you are now.
Yeah.
Yeah, those little bits.
And I remember reading about all like the natural ways of helping yourself, and like grounding is one of them, meditation is another one. And I remember taking my shoes off and feeling my feet on the grass outside, and even coming down the stairs, I remember turning around and thinking, I'm gonna have to go back upstairs. I can't, just getting down these stairs. I can see where agoraphobia comes from. Is that the right word? Where you're scared of being outside.
Yeah.
I can see where that comes from, and that's quite a strong pattern when people have been going through mental health, because I was scared to leave my bedroom, and just that tiny walk into my bathroom, I was scared, and then walking down the stairs, I was scared, and thinking I'm gonna have to turn around and go back upstairs in a minute. But then I carried on, getting to my back door, and I thought, oh, I can hear birds. This is scary. I can hear things out here. I thought, I'm just gonna do it. I'm just gonna put my feet on that ground, and I'm gonna stand there for a minute, and I did it. Even if I did go back to bed after, I did that task, and then the next day I went outside and stood there longer, and the next day I managed to actually sit on our garden furniture for a little bit. And it was just little steps. Having said that though, I don't think I would have been able to do it without your support and everyone's support around me, giving me the patience. And that goes for people who are in a scenario where they are dealing with people with mental health. You've got to have a lot of patience as well, and just be there, knowing that you don't have to say anything. I sometimes wake you in the middle of the night, I didn't want you to say anything, I just wanted you to cuddle me, didn't I? Yeah. Even if you're worried about knowing the right thing to say, just be there and let that person know that they're not on their own, they're not a burden, and that it will take however long it will take. And there's no rush with getting better with mental health. I mean, I had a little dip last year still, but each time teaches you something new. And today is the best I've ever felt in the last 5 years. And I can talk about mum, and yes, I well up, but I can get it out there, and I feel more happier about my mum than what I have done. And just the little tasks, I can make my kids lunch boxes every day, I can go on their school trips, and which at the time I never thought I was going to be a good enough mum. I thought, how can I stay in this bed and them grow up knowing that they've got a mum in their bed? Like, that's they would never see that or never know that, and if they do, that's okay. They understand. So just know that, I just want people to know that they are not a burden.
And in 2022, when you were, say, a couple of weeks into your breakdown, you couldn't leave your bed, if someone had come and sat next to you and said, I've got a crystal ball, in 2025 at the end of May you're going to be sat doing a podcast, talking through your whole experience of your mum and what happened, and you're going to be able to sit there and talk about it, and your focus is going to be about helping others that are going through the same thing, and you're going to be fine, you're going to be able to do that. What would you have said to them?
Absolutely not. No way. I can't even change my baby's nappy, so let alone sit here and talk about it. And that is my aim. I want to help people. I'm not in any way a mental health therapist. I'm not qualified. I can just go by experience, and I want to be the voice, because I didn't have that voice at that time. I mean, I had Glenda, but it took a long, I want people to get the symptoms but then get the help straight away. I had it for quite a while because we didn't know what was going on. So now, knowing what I know, I want to help people and give people the tips and tricks to come out of this, because you will come out of it.
So if someone was listening to this, I suppose it's really educational if you haven't been through any of this, knowing that it's a possibility, and knowing that you're sort of telling people the signs of this is what could happen. So if that does happen, they've got that in their mind, that this could be a solution. Like, it could be this or it could be that. Whereas before, when you've done it, you were like, this is physical, like regardless. It's not mental health. I haven't got mental health. I'm fine.
Yeah.
But now I suppose, which is what the aim of this is, and it's like some of the guests that you're going to have on here, like people like Stella, who's been through a lot, a really good friend of ours, will also be exactly for that purpose. So the thing, when she talks about the things that she's been through, is going to be, it's things that people can relate to.
Yeah.
So you said the big massive turning point for you was speaking to Glenda, because she'd been through it before, and because she was telling you things that you're now going through.
Yeah.
That's what made you think she's telling the truth.
Because when you are going through something like that, you feel you're the only one. You feel like you're going insane. And because people don't speak openly about it, I didn't have the videos that we do now, the podcasts that we do now, the TikToks, you know, I didn't have that accessible. I didn't know what to look for. I didn't know how to research for myself. I couldn't, not in that state of mind. So now, going through it, you're not alone. You are not alone. There's so many people out there, whether your symptoms are the same, whether your traumas are the same, you're not alone. There will be someone else. And that's how I've gone on to meet Stella. So through my traumas, I've met so many powerful people who have been through the same. And they're now my wavelength. They're now really good friends of mine. And she actually helped me through my second breakdown, didn't she?
Yeah,
she gave me tips and tricks, and she pulled me out of the trenches again. So had I not gone through the first breakdown, I wouldn't have met her, and I wouldn't have been able to get through the second one without her. So it's, you know, it's a knock-on effect, I think, and there are positives to come out of bad situations. And yeah, that's what I want to try and get across to people, that it's just a bad day. It's not a bad life.
Yeah.